call Senate Study Bill 3033 Subcommittee to order. Thank you, Senator Reichman and Senator Staed, for joining in this afternoon. The short title for this is the Iowa City State Historical Research Center, and the description of this bill is as of the following. This bill is from the Department of Administrative Services. This bill removes the requirement that the Department of Administrative Services maintains a research center in Iowa City. The requirement for such a center in Des Moines is unchanged. So I know we're going to have lots of discussion. My inbox has been filled with things. I've taken some phone calls over the weekend, and I'm glad everyone could join us today. Is there any opening comments from either one of the senators here?
Just because this is so heavily attended, we are on a half-hour time limit, so we do need to keep our comments brief.
Ready to hear you then?
Great, so we're going to circulate the room, and then I will go to the online audience. Like I said, we're limited to a half hour here due to the time frame, so I'm going to start with DAS right here. Thank you for joining us, Tammy, from the Department of Administrative Services. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm Tammy Weinsack, the Legislative Liaison for DAS, and in the essence of brevity, I just want to say that I have two people with me, our Director, Mark Campbell, and also our Deputy Director and General Counsel, Nathan Reichman. The bill is self-explanatory, so that's what I will say about the content of that.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments? And then I'm going to swoop right over here. Comments? Okay, we'll start over here.
Thank you, Senator.
Yes.
I did send out by email two documents, and there should be enough for the staff and the...
Introduce yourself.
Yes, I will. Thank you. I need the encouragement. My name's Jim Carney, and I'm here to speak on behalf of State Historical Society, Inc. And I think it's important very quickly for you to understand who we're dealing with. State Historical Society, Inc. is a nonprofit corporation going back to 1867, speaking of history, okay? We strongly support the maintaining the Iowa City facility. We oppose this legislation. The material that I sent to you by email, which I pass out to you, gives the reasons why, but you should also know that there's litigation pending right now. There's two lawsuits, one we brought, and one by a group of, I think, about 17 interested citizens, okay? We're in the administrative law process right now, and actually there's a date coming up, January here. We need to file our appeal, which we do plan on doing. Basically, you know, we believe that the Iowa City facility should be maintained. We have a college over there with the librarian and information sciences that is very involved in the preservation of Iowa history and records and documents. And we think that that's just a natural place for this to be. We're very concerned about the capacity to merge everything over here, both in terms of staff, the facility. You know, they came in and took part of the collection away, and we're very concerned about that. We don't have an inventory of what was taken, nor do we have any understanding of how that those materials, which are very valuable, irreplaceable, are being preserved and taken care of. So, long story short is our group, which attached to the material is a listing of our board members, 7 board members, okay? And I also attached the list of the trustees of the State Historical Society of Iowa. It's pretty confusing, so that's why I wanted to give that material to you. It's our understanding that the trustees really weren't involved in this decision, and we still don't know where they are, what position they have. They were appointed by the governor. With that, I know time is short. We appreciate the opportunity to be here. Our our president, I believe, was going to try to Zoom in. He may not have been able to make it. With that, thank you, and take any questions you might have. I think the material we passed out hopefully addresses a lot of it, Senator.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you very much.
I really appreciate it. There's somebody that looks like in the waiting room. Would you like to let that know? Okay, we're gonna continue swiftly around the room.
My name is Kathy Gorley, and I submitted written comments. I'll just highlight a couple of those. Since 1983, the three historical agencies in the state were combined. Since then, the law has said that they will maintain research centers in Des Moines and Iowa City. That language never changed, but in June 2025, just a month after the legislature adjourned here, the DAS on its own said that they were closing the Iowa City building and began moving items. That seems to fly in the face of what the law says. It's pretty clear that DAS and the Historical Society overstepped the bounds and state law when they, as executive branch administrators, decided that they could disregard an unambiguous directive in the law. That directive says the department shall maintain research centers in Des Moines and Iowa City. And there are priceless collections at risk, and I think that we need to have a historical society that is adequately funded and staffed, and that we have state employees who follow the law. Thanks.
Circulating. Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay, you're next.
Thanks very much. Thank you. Thanks. My name is Will Page. I'm a historic preservation consultant. I live here in Des Moines, and I say throughout Iowa, many historic buildings have used the state historic preservation tax credits. And I want to mention the tax credits for a minute or two. First of all, thank you for providing these for the state of Iowa, because they've been popular both in urban and rural areas, in large cities, in small communities across the state. They help Iowa revitalize. To be completely successful for these historic preservation tax credits, applicants must prove that their buildings possess historic significance. This requires a determination of eligibility from the Iowa State Historic Preservation Office. These reports are scholarly and require considerable research. My colleagues here across the room will confer with me that this is a challenge. We need these historic archives. The Centennial Building in Iowa City has historically provided a source of these reference materials. The future of these materials is now in question. The closure of the Centennial Building puts these documents in jeopardy. Without them, I fear that historic preservation and its economic benefits will be severely impacted in this state. History is good for business. The Centennial Building is good for history. Thank you, and I urge you to vote no on this.
Thank you, Senators, for taking time to meet with us today. My name is Dave Baker. I'm an Iowa author, and write The 29th State, which is a Iowa-focused history page that is online to get people connected and to help people appreciate and understand our history. Some of you know sometimes getting people excited about history is difficult. I'm 37 years old. I've been on historical boards and members of historical societies and committees since I was in high school. I'm currently on board of trustees for 2 historical societies. I'm a member in good standing of a 3rd, and I've been a part of more than a half dozen other organizations that I'm no longer officially involved with, but still attend events and have a relationship with. I've heard it said the Centennial Building is redundant, and I would like to disagree with that. This book is available downstairs in the Capitol Bookstore. It's called More Than Waypoints, and this is what I put together over the last 5 years. It contains history of all the incorporated towns in the 633 counties of Iowa. I was only able to do this because of both locations. There are redundancies at them, that is true. There are things that are at both, but there are things that are uniquely at Des Moines and things that are uniquely at Iowa City. When we talk about young people my age appreciating history, I hear a lot of people say, well, young people just aren't interested in history, and nobody's interested in history. And I would disagree with that, because we are. We are very interested in it. But when you take it away and you make it harder for us to access it, and you make it harder for us to get access to those records, that makes people not want to investigate. It turns people off. And the other fact of the matter is once we remove things and make it harder to get to them, it doesn't normally go the other direction. We don't make it easier to get to records. So please, I would urge you, vote no on this bill. I'm a business person. I can appreciate wanting to save money, but there's got to be other ways that we can do that, because we fund things that we feel are important. And if we're not adequately funding the Historical Society, to me, that says that that's not a priority for Iowa. And I think for the people of Iowa, they would disagree with that statement. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is John Banstra. You notice I have a red shirt on supporting my grandchildren in their athletics. My other shirt is for our founding fathers. Imagine my grandchildren, great-grandchildren, same with you folks, if they could not learn history. Our country is celebrating its 250th anniversary. What would happen if we had destroyed that information and not been saved? Where would we be at today? And in the interest of keeping this short, I use the collection extensively for research in pioneer cemeteries. I'm a pioneer cemetery commissioner in Mahaska County. Through these records, we've located 6 cemeteries that have been lost. So shutting this down is destroying much information. Thank you for your time, and I request that you vote no on this bill.
Okay, back behind you, would you like to speak? Any of you here?
Briefly, yes.
Okay.
Okay. I was at the University of Iowa as an archaeologist for 30 years. I spent a lot of time in the Iowa City branch doing research. But the 2 things that I'm going to bring to your attention is that I was in there several times, and there were people from the general public there doing genealogical research. And to hear how excited they were as they found stuff, as they learned to reuse the microfilm machines, was astounding. And the other one, even more important, is that I was there when Jonathan Buffalo from the Meskwaki Nation was there, showing his son, 26 years old, the things that the Meskwaki had given Iowa City's branch to keep for them in time memorial that are, yeah. So those are the 2 things that I want you to think about. This is a human, goes to individuals and education. It's history, but it's also those 2 things. So vote no on this.
Peter here with the Iowa Federation of Labor. We represent hundreds of local unions across the state of Iowa. We've had local unions that visited this facility. Overall, we've donated hundreds of boxes of materials to the state. Some of those locals don't even exist anymore. But we do have many that has their entire historical collection there. So in December, when they found out the building was closing, they actually went to the facility. Some people did legitimate research and were going back to the international to kind of report back on that. I think one of the biggest crux of this was that there just has not been a lot of transparency on what's going to happen. And I think that's really what's bothering a lot of people. those documents immediately, as soon as we started telling people like, hey, you should check this stuff out, it's gonna be closed, we're not sure what's gonna happen, they immediately wanted to pull it back. That's not what we want. We don't want to lose our collective history. That belongs to everybody in Iowa. It's not the labor, it's not the Iowa Federation of Labor's history. It's all of Iowa. A lot of rural Iowa is based there. They visited the facility, and I just want to report that a lot of people have really great experiences there. These are everyday people who have no research experience going in there and getting these collections pulled out. It was very fast, transparent, and the people there were really wonderful to deal with and work with. So we just want to say that we like the facility where it's at, and we like to keep it going. Thank you.
Hi, Senators. Chairman Brad Jefferson Fink here on behalf of Save Iowa History. It's a grassroots organization looking to keep the Iowa City facility open. And I think we have to realize the law is clear. Current Iowa code says that there has to be a facility in Des Moines and one in Iowa City. And the department went and unilaterally closed the Iowa City facility. They just said, to heck with the Iowa code, to heck with the law, we're going to close this, and they did. And I think when that happens once, when it happens once, maybe you say that's a one-off. But I have to remind you, the department also, and I'm going to read you something that Judge Farrell had said, full-time district coach Judge Farrell had mentioned, and the department's dealing with Honey Creek. And he said he found that the department, despite a lack of justification, bullied forward with its plans. My concern here is, if it happens once, it's a one-off. I fear that we might be seeing a trend, and I think that's a dangerous trend. And let's let the courts decide how this turns out. And then if folks don't like the court's decision, we can come back, because we'll probably all be back here next year. I just think right now the law is very clear that we have to have these two facilities, and the department went on its own unilaterally and then did what is not in Iowa law.
I am Lydia Revere. I am here from Des Moines. Originally, though, I was from Minnesota. I came down here to go to school and study international relations and graphic design at Woodward College. I came here even though most of the colleges that I was accepted to were in Minnesota, because I felt this was the best option for me to learn what I wanted to learn about history and about politics. I cannot feel the way things have been going in terms of how resources related to history and education are handled right now. That I can recommend that people younger than me come down and use our schools if we're going to treat our resources this way. So I would like the board to take into consideration that when we strip back these resources over and over again, we contribute to the brain drain that's been a huge problem for Iowa already. It's history now, but that can also be science and medical related information, and it just has a lot of trickle-down effects that I think we need to consider alongside the budgetary issues. Save money now, lose money later.
Any others quickly around this table before we?
I speak, please?
Yeah. Around the table.
I'm here in 3 roles. One is that I organized the petition drive on Save Iowa History back in June when we got this shocking news. There's 8,080 signatures on this, 5,534 Iowans, and otherwise bordering states in Illinois and Minnesota. I'm also here as a 50-year employee at the State Historical Society, where I was very privileged to work as a historian, archivist, librarian, and educator. I too witnessed the amazement on researchers' faces when they discovered essential pieces of evidence. So my regard for this venerable institution is deeply embedded in my soul, and I feel this short-sighted decision is going to have a huge impact on the writing, teaching, and dissemination of Iowa history, and keep our state's role in the nation's history hidden. I'm a proud Iowan. I'm from Sioux City. I almost went to Iowa State because I was a Beecham scholar, but I ended up over at the University of Iowa, and I was blessed to get a job at the State Historical Society as a work-study student in 1973 after working at the library. I ask you to please scrutinize this. We are opposed to this bill because it needs more careful examination. I am opposed to a unilateral decision behind closed doors by a group of bureaucrats at the top level who did not consult with the experts. I am one of those experts. I work with Iowa Public Television. I wrote books. I did National History Day students. I I did everything this agency was about. And when Tony Jan sat there with Adam Steen, they didn't consider the human quotient in this story. They did not consider the legacy they've inherited and are charged to be stewards of. So I ask you to re-examine your decision. Don't skirt the Iowa law. Don't try to change the Iowa law. This institution, we're at a historic juncture. On January 29, 1857, legislators sat in Old Capitol and decided to create this institution for Iowans and to leave it in Iowa City because the capital was moving to Des Moines. Okay, this is the oldest library in Iowa, besides the University of Iowa's library. This was before county historical societies were established, before local libraries established, except maybe a town like Dubuque. We are so rich on eastern Iowa, where there's Decorah, Dubuque, Keokuk, Dyersville, excuse me. We have that story embedded in that, because we are an academic research library. I want to counter one of the misinformations that DAS has given. There's very little duplication. In 1985, when our new building was built, the professional librarian sat down and said, let's avoid duplication. Let's separate out our duties. So that's a false thing to say, because none of the archival materials in Iowa City are duplicated in Des Moines. So I consider this a very unfair thing to do. It's an honor to celebrate our state. I was indoctrinated as a young person to protect these materials. It's outrageous to me that this plan has unfolded without more careful consideration. So please go back to the drawing board and DAS. Talk to the people that are plaintiffs. I'm one of the 17 plaintiffs in that case. We have conservators, we have historians, we have archivists, we have librarians, we have scholars. Please look at the words of these experts instead of relying on people who Tony John said they have to rob Peter to pay Paul, and Valerie Van Kooten says out of sight, out of mind. So streamlining Iowa City out of the picture does not solve the problems of the historical building in Des Moines, which has $74.69 million of deferred maintenance on it. So for Iowa City to have $878,000, excuse me, of deferred maintenance for very minor things that have been on that list for decades, it's really not fair to close our doors. It's not going to benefit Des Moines in any way. I am very loyal. I have a great allegiance for the State Historical Society, and that extends to Des Moines. My colleagues in the museum, I've curated exhibits. I've worked with them closely in the library archives. The acquisitions program was run out of Iowa City for years. We knew what we were buying. We were tailoring these libraries to be most useful to the residents that were in the direct vicinity of it. So thank you for listening. I appreciate your time today. I know you have a difficult job. We have 120 or more comments that have been entered into public comments. I urge you to print those out and have your staff read those so you can see the perspectives of many Iowans who care very deeply about this. There is a heavy emotional toll on donors and researchers with this bad decision. So it's short-sighted, please reverse it. Thank you for your time.
Ma'am, since you work there, I have a direct question. How many people are employed there?
None right now. They just laid off 2.5 FTEs in Iowa City's Library and Archives, and they laid off 2.5 FTEs in the Des Moines Library and Archives. So you've lost 5 full-time staff with this maneuver of Valerie Van Kooten and Tony Johns. So how can they adopt and absorb Iowa City when they've just lost most of their staff? There's no one on the staff in Des Moines now, except for a woman who's lingering until she can sell her house, but she'll be gone by March.
So strictly volunteers?
Yes.
Okay,
One
thank
last
you.
thing, I can't give you this, but this man scoured the universe for every early image of Iowa, including Dubuque and Keokuk. These stereographs, he spent $250,000 collecting them. The state of Iowa did not invest that. That's a private person. We are a private-public partnership with volunteers, free labor from the university, and this kind of work.
Okay, sir, your floor is yours. If you'd like to speak.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak with you this afternoon. My name is David McCartney. I'm University of Iowa Archivist Emeritus. I live in Iowa City, but I grew up in Charles City, up in northeastern Iowa. And the point has been made repeatedly and very eloquently by people before me, but I need to reinforce the fact that this is a matter of trust. It's a matter of obligation that the state has to the people who support the state. And by those people, I mean people who have donated their papers, their family histories to the State Historical Society. David Mearns was a longtime curator of rare books and manuscripts at the Library of Congress. And in my graduate school days, I turned to him often for inspiration. He wrote back in the 1950s a very timeless essay devoted to the reverence that is needed when a donor works with a repository in entrusting their papers to that repository in perpetuity. He described it as a solemn act, an act that should be carried out with great reverence and respect. The state of Iowa needs to follow that lead. It needs to continue to uphold that dedication to its own obligation. Passage of this would violate that obligation, and it would be a very terrible disservice to this state if this bill were to be even brought to the floor, let alone passed. On a personal note, my mother up in Charles City donated some blueprints of our 1915 Prairie School house that I grew up in. They were from the Howard Burr papers. Howard Burr was a prominent architect in Waterloo for many years in the early 20th century. He designed the Rhinebeck Public Library. He designed many homes, businesses, and churches in Iowa and the Midwest. Where will we be able to find those blueprints? Where will we be able to find my church's records, the Congregational Church of Iowa City, which are housed at Iowa City? We don't know where they are right now. Our concern is that the state needs to uphold its end of the bargain, uphold its obligation to its citizens. And thank you all very much for your time.
Very briefly, Belin with the Laborers Union. We're opposed to the legislation. I guess I might be a little late to the party here. I guess my question is I don't understand like where the origin of this is, and I say that to also say that there's a competing bill over in the other chamber that does the exact opposite of what we're doing here today. So I'm very confused as to the directions in which we're going when there's two competing bills being brought forward that do the exact opposite of each other. So I just wanted to point that out. Thank you for your time, and appreciate it.
I'd like to speak briefly. State Senator Janice Weiner. This to me is a cart before horse issue. There were budgetary decisions made at the end of last session. There was no discussion in the relevant subcommittee of cutting this building. There was no discussion within the legislature. We need legislative oversight over this. We deserve that. This history is an all Iowa issue. It is our patrimony. It is the patrimony of every single Iowan. And it has church histories, synagogue histories, community histories, labor histories. This is basically what's happened is a decision was made essentially behind closed doors to close this and without consulting any of us. And now the attempt is being made to make that change final in legislation rather than starting from the beginning where we should have. So I would urge a no vote on this. A reference was made to a bill in the House. I will shortly be filing a companion bill in the Senate to the House. Thank you.
I'm going to bring in our General Counsel, Nathan Reichman, but we have answers for all the concerns brought up, and I know we're very short on time, but to be brief, Nathan.
So Nathan Reichman, Deputy Director and General Counsel for the Iowa Department of Administrative Services. This decision was a fiscal decision. We can't support with our budget the center in Iowa City and the center here in Des Moines. We do have an agreement with the University of Iowa that they will serve as our research center, so we are going to comply with the law. We continue to comply with the law. We are working through that process. The plan is to bring all of the items in Iowa City when we can to Des Moines and catalog them, make them available online, make them more accessible. One of our issues right now is the items in Iowa City are all cataloged in a card catalog that you have to be on site to get. You can't access them here in the four corners of the state. So our plan is to make these items more accessible and available to everyone. We have a website that details the things that have been moved from Iowa City to Des Moines. I can tell you where all those things are. We are willing to answer any questions anybody has. We are being as transparent as possible.
I looked at a lot of the dollar amounts tied to this, and they seem a little low. The HVAC, the elevator repair, looking at the size of the building and stuff, they look a little bit low, and would like to see verify those.
Yes.
Make sure they're up there.
Yeah, I can tell you the HVAC number on there is just for a study. That is not to redo anything. That is
That's
just
just
for
a study.
It's just a study. Yeah.
Yeah, I said we're spending about that much for our Legion Hall.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. So yeah, those are initial numbers that are just to kind of get us there. Yep.
Also, all of our de-accession of materials is in rule and policy. The department is not willy-nilly destroying things. We are
It's not-
following our own rules.
And it's not destroying anything. I mean, we have a process, it's an industry standard, it's a transparent public process, so we can tell you what it is.
I do want to ask a question too, or you're going to ask it. Is the county providing any funding for that facility? And then I've signed off, and we could need to continue this discussion, obviously. So I've signed off on it, and I need to get to my next subject.
No, they don't, but Inc. gives us grants all the time, like $100,000 a year.
So there's no county funding in this, it's all state funding?
Community
It is all state
foundation.
funded.
Okay, thank you. That was my question too. I know and I just want to make sure too that we're not destroying information. There's a myth out there and misinformation out there that we're just closing the doors and destroying all this information. That is not. And then what about all the, I know I got a lot of emails over the weekend about this, so I did my due diligence and read many of them. But there's churches that store their information there, and there's all types of other venues that store their information there. Are they paying a storage fee or a rental fee? Are they helping with the cost to keep the doors open at the center?
They never have.
Okay, so that's a no. They are not, correct?
paying their taxes.
So it's a storage unit
Paying
for
their taxes.
people that
It's a
want to.
research center.
Okay. Let's see. So all of this information that's currently stored there is going to be preserved and handled in accordance with the state and national historical collection standards. That's correct, Das, right?
That is correct.
Okay, so I just want to make sure because I heard a lot of that inaccurate information reported here earlier today during the meeting. Senator Staed, do you have any comments as we wrap this up?
Yeah.
I first want to thank everybody that has given us input. I got lots of emails with good rationale for keeping it in Iowa City. And I'm gonna be a no.
And then I also want to make sure that, a little bit of background on this, because lots of it wasn't exposed, but this center's been there since 1957. And in my understanding, I have personally visited it before, and I know recent visits, it seems to be very disorganized. So I don't know if that's accurate or not, but is there procedures coming up that they're going to clean it up, disorganize, start charging rental fees or storage fees for any of these documents? Or are they still expecting the taxpayers to foot the bill for the storage center?
Taxpayers have historically supported, like the state law library, public libraries. This is a public good, it's a public
I have a
service.
question about the archives. I know there's been a memorandum of understanding in terms of archives that have gone from the Centennial Building to the University of Iowa Library. However, it's restricted, and it's also very complicated in terms of access for people like us. So the memorandum of understanding for a portion of the archives is not really clear, and I'm not quite sure what the standards are that the DAS is using and if they're complying with them. And I'd like to see a study if that is actually the case.
And I also understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's about only 800 visitors a year, and many of them are repeats since they may be duplicated
That's
there.
misleading information.
Do you know what the information is correct then?
We have
Since you work
11 to
there?
12,000 people who hit our catalog online, and we deal with
So
email.
online's different, because they still can do that.
We used to average like 4,000 a month, okay? But because of diminishing staff and diminishing publicity for our operation, that number declined. But I would have graduate student seminars and 50 students at once one day. So you can't, I think that you have to look at this again from a much broader angle than what you're looking at. It's more than dollars. It's about humanity.
So this project was put on hold due to the lawsuit and injunction, just so everyone knows for record, by local citizens. And in December of 25, DAS announced that the State Historical Society of Iowa and the University of Iowa made an agreement to maintain public access to the State Historical Society collections in the University of Iowa Library. So that conversation has already happened in regards to the university stepping up to assist with that. And so I wanted to make sure that that isn't going by the wayside either.
But to echo your comments, Tony Jan said in a collections committee January 7th how restricted it was. It will not be oversized materials, no photographs, no maps, no heavy volumes of records. It really closes a large portion of the collection. Like quickly, the catalog, we were always had a 200-year backlog. Why don't you go to the Wisconsin Historical Society and ask them what their situation is? That's not fair to criticize a card catalog.
Yeah, I'm not criticizing, I'm just saying that there's a lot of these steps that we've already researched and DAS has researched, so I just want to make sure that the public is very well aware when we're taking these things into consideration. So,
The agreement that ends in June.
yeah, June 30th, 2026, right. There was an agreement, January to June 30th, which probably is doing their obligation for the legislation and forgivenation, to go back through the courts. So if it's passed and enacted, then there'd have to be a further conversation, I'm assuming, that would go into effect. So, I thank you all for being here today. I know it's a very passionate thing. I know my day job is tourism. I work with a lot of historical societies. They're all scrapping for money in regards to how they're gonna keep their doors open, and history is important to Iowa. So I don't think we're shortfalling history by any means, and just throwing that to the banks and curbs, because it isn't extremely important. But things are updated in time too, and budget shortfalls. If the county's not contributing and there's no rental fees for everyone that's storing information there, I don't know if that's due diligence that just should fall on the Iowa taxpayer as well. So lots of conversations to be had. I'm planning to sign this out today with a potential amendment to hear the conversation, see how the lawsuit goes along, and then we can continue this conversation. So thank you all for being here today, and Art, I'll leave that up to you if you'd like to sign or not.
No.
Okay, Art's a no, and Senator Reichman and I sign this out. That concludes Senate Study Bill 3033 today. Thank you for your attendance.